Welcome to the Empower and Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Dwyer, and today I have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine, a young man who I've known for some years now. He's always been a beacon of light in my life and has always had the ability to spread wisdom and build great relationships. So with that being said, I would like to introduce to you my good friend, James Shawn Perry. Mr. Perry, welcome to today's podcast.
I am more than honored. I'm thrilled and just so glad we're finally able to do this.
But yeah, that's okay. I understand you're a busy man, and he's a young man that has more tasks than calendar, I promise you. But again, it's an honor to finally have you on the show, man, and I'm just looking forward to today's conversation. Now, I kind of set the conditions in saying who you are to me and all that great stuff, but these people don't know you. So tell them this amazing person that James Perry is.
Oh, okay. Well, been around a little bit, right? So what did Indiana Jones say? It's not the age, it's the mileage. But I guess I am a father of 4 handsome boys, just like me, right? That kind of thing. I got a beautiful wife. We got living here in North Alabama, just south of Huntsville. I'm a retired Army officer, right? Spent most of my time in the cavalry. So we got some spurs and all those great things. And it used to really, as I reflected back on my Army career, so much of it was spent in positions where when I would show up, they said, hey, this needs to be fixed. So go create it. Or, hey, we have this new position, so go create it. Never did I step in somewhere and they say, oh, well, hey, here's your desk, here's your stuff, here's your coffee pot, here, blah, blah, and just begin work. No, it was always like, well, you have to go find a place to work. You have to go find the stuff, right? You got to go create some new organization. So that's good. So anyway, I say all that to say I've been seen lots of things like that. So that got me very interested in sharing what I had picked up as lessons learned as a leadership coach. And I got involved with John Maxwell and in one of his organizations there, and studied and rehearsed and got certified in a number of things. And now I provide leadership coaching and training and speaking to entrepreneurs. Is primarily who the target is, but leadership is universal, as you know, Dwayne. It applies everywhere, everything. And as John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership.
I definitely appreciate your progression, because through your progression, I learned a lot as well. And he mentioned that he is a John Maxwell certified leadership coach. He was the one who actually introduced me to the John Maxwell team. And, I just kind of dove in, and just, enjoyed the ride the entire time. And one thing he didn't share with you, I thought he was going to share, like, he is an aviator. Like, that's what he did in the Army. So, he has a thing that he normally calls him. He says he's a reformed aviator.
Recovering Army aviator.
There we go.
And I like flying. I was pretty good at it. But what I found I really enjoyed more was being with soldiers.
Yeah.
Leading soldiers and NCOs and being a part of the team and being where I think that, for me, that was good. The flying was fun, I enjoyed, but it wasn't as rewarding for me as it was to be with.
Yeah. So I think that's what brings us here today, because, I kind of presented the idea of, Shawn giving me a topic, and we kind of went back and forth a number of different times. And to be honest with you, we never settled on the topic, and I'm okay with that, because he and I somehow always seem to have phenomenal conversations that I learn a lot from. And so through the power of conversation today, I think that's where we're going to go. We're going to just have empowering conversation and hopefully present something that actually allows each and every person who hears the phenomenal words of this young man, maybe it can resonate with you and cause you to do some self-assessment, and then, just march forward and do the great and wonderful things that you are designed to do. So, Mr. Perry, where are we going today? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm constantly learning. All right. So as a growth-minded person, I'm always looking for something new to capture, to take away, and spread to others. Right. So I know that if I'm going to add value to somebody, then I have to make myself more valuable. Right? So I'm always looking to learn. And one of the things that I've been studying recently is the idea of casting a vision for your business, a vision for your relationships, a vision for really how you want to live your life. And it's been rewarding to learn some of that. And as I gain more and more insight, it caused me to go back and reflect on things. And because of negativity bias, it's always easy to go find those things that I screwed up in my life, or I made the wrong decision, or I did something that poorly, that I could have done better. If I don't know, only known then what I know now, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, but it is what it is, as they
Yeah.
say. So, but yeah, so vision is something I think to talk about, because it's back to trying to live intentionally and being deliberate with what we do. And it's so easy to fall out of that. I had a good friend of mine years and years ago. He, when we were talking about like doing physical training in the Army, on our own, we did PT, with the soldiers and stuff. But then, okay, we're gonna go to the gym at lunch or whatever. And some days he just didn't want to do it. And he'd say, hey, you got to do it. You got to push through. You got to get out there and do the things. You got to do the grind.
Yeah.
He says it's very easy to get soft. It's hard to get hard. You gotta do that. John Maxwell talks in terms of everything good. Success is all uphill. Right? Downhill is nothing. Nobody, accidentally got to the top of a mountain. Right? I mean, you had to be intentional to get up there. So I think that. So let's chat about vision for a little bit.
I love it. And let's do it, because here's the thing, and it's funny that you bring this to the topic of discussion, because I want to kind of set the conditions for that, because we've all understood to a certain degree what the vision is, to a certain degree, and I have to say it that way, because I was not absent of that. I understood what the vision was to a certain degree, but for me, just the idea of vision came full circle when we worked together. After me leaving Oklahoma and coming to Fort Gordon, because I needed to understand the vision of the company. And for me, understanding where the company was going helped me to have a very good understanding of the importance of what I was doing as far as work is concerned. So the vision for the company was more important than my own individual ideas initially. And so once I got in line with the vision, it all just seemed to make sense. So not to steal your thunder, sir, let's just kind of break it down. Let's just go in and, just kind of address vision from a more hierarchical perspective. So when you say vision, what is it that you're really talking about?
Well, I appreciate you just shared that. In fact, I've got one of my notes over here, because, I'm smart, but I think being smart really comes from knowing what you're dumb at.
Yeah.
Right. And I was, and if anybody was on YouTube, there's, I don't know how many hundreds of different, how to write a vision statement, what's your mission, and all that kind of stuff, your business, and blah, blah. And I looked at a number of those because I'm into that kind of stuff. But Simon Sinek actually shared something insightful that he says, regarding about a vision, the three things, right? And so we're going to talk about those, but what you just addressed was one of them. But I guess, for folks that are new to that, I have to go, what is, vision? Because not everybody thinks like that, right? So the vision is, how, in my sense, my definition is, what do I want my fill in the blank to be? What do I want my life to be? What do I want my legacy to be? What do I want my business to be about? What do I want my relationships to look like? So if I know where I want to go with things, well, then I can start to pull things together to get there. I mean, Napoleon Hill, in his book, Think and Grow Rich, he talks about having this burning desire for something. And if you know what that is and you focus on it and you think about it, what he says is the universe, conspires and presents these things ahead of you. And we all know, it ties back to like confirmation bias.
Yeah.
If you're going to go buy a new Toyota Tacoma, you're researching Toyota Tacomas, next thing you know, you're seeing Toyota Tacomas all over the highway, right?
Absolutely.
So it's similar in that sense, but to have that burning desire, this is what I am about.
Yeah.
I think that's the vision. And then ideally in relationships, if people kind of have a similar vision and you're moving that direction, well, then you run parallel, and those are the people that you keep around, right? That you stick with, that's where you're going to have the biggest reward, collaboratively there.
Yeah.
So vision is where do you want to be with whatever it is that you're visioning.
I love it. I love how you said that, right? Because what I heard you say, it is literally, it helps me as an employee to kind of narrow my focus, right? Because we have so many other things that go on in our head, that when I fall in with said company, it helps me to focus my energy in the direction in which the C-suite the C-suite has actually prescribed for the company. This is the direction that we're going. Sure, I have my own things going on with life. I have family, I have friends, I have a social life. But when it comes down to what I'm doing at work, I have a vision. and that vision keeps me focused in the direction for the needs of the organization. And one of the things I want to kind of add to that is the leaders within that organization do a phenomenal job of refocusing all of the employees on the vision. And every now and then we got to kind of go back and revisit that, right? I remember a particular incident to where, we were going through the stages of team development, and I came to you and I was talking. I was upset. He was like, "Yeah, but what about this?" And I was like, "Wait, hold on. He's right." You know what I'm saying? So vision seems to have that ability to do that. Please go ahead.
No, I think this one is such a fun topic because it is. And in the Army we used to call it, commander philosophy or commander intent, those kinds of things. And when Dwayne and I worked together, I borrowed this from a book, Sticky Teams. I'd have to look to see who the author is here. But the idea of what he used for his staff at a church was the reference to a visual of a plumb line, right, where a mason would use a plumb line, right? It's a pendulum on a string, and you affix that next to where you want to build a wall. And as you stack those bricks or stones, well, the plumb line keeps you straight. It keeps you oriented. It keeps you, in going the direction you want to build this wall. And so if you start to deviate from that, well, now you're no longer plumb, and you got to kind of get back to being plumb. So we created plumb lines there, and it did. And in fact, the whole intent of that was to let not only other people know how we were going to, one, view ourselves, but how we would interact with other people, and then the customer that we were serving. So plumb lines was a way to do that. And I want to give your listeners here something that they can take with them, right? I'm always about action step stuff. So the Simon Sinek video that I saw, I took some notes on this because he's always insightful. I always enjoy listening to him. He's energetic, and I appreciate his style. And he's kind of all over the place and kind of swirly, but he's knowledgeable. And I think he says things very well. At least he says it so I can understand. So when it comes to a vision, when he opens up, he says, people use the word vision, they use mission, and sometimes they argue, well, which comes first, right? Which is which? And he says, quite honestly, what's the difference? And what does it matter? What it is. And he says he doesn't even like to use the word vision. He prefers to use the word just cause. Right? So so you create a just cause for your business, let's say. And he likes that instead of vision because just cause immediately implies a higher standard. It has to be a just cause, right? A cause that is so just that you would be willing to sacrifice for it. Because we know, right, as a leader, anywhere, to move up, you got to give up some things, but you gain in the end. And so the idea of a just cause. So he says what's key, though, is if you can create a just cause that is focused on something like that, will your staff, will your employees, will your family, will your scout troop, will your whoever it is that you're providing this just cause vision for, are they going to buy into it and be willing to sacrifice also? Right? So were you talking about, I needed to know what the company was about. Great. He says, because sometimes, if the company doesn't have the same kind of vision that I have, then it's not where I think I want to work, right?
Yeah.
So you have to think through that. But just cause, so I like this. Anyway, so he identified three things, right? Three things that he uses as a test, right? So he says the first, your just cause has to be resilient. And when he says resilient, what he's talking about is resilient to technological, cultural, or political change, right? So he says, hey, our mission statement is to have the best technology company. Well, that doesn't work, right? Because technology changes and things are going to happen, and that's just too broad and not very focused anyway. So it has to be resilient to withstand those potential changes, right? Technical, cultural, or political. He says the second thing is it also has to be inclusive, right? And specifically, the words that you choose have to be an invitation for those both internal and external to participate. The example he uses, it says, like, if you have a business and your mission is to create a great travel website, or the best travel website on the internet, Okay, that's nice, but the only people that are going to want to be a part of that are people that build travel websites,
Right.
as he said. So now, if I'm an accountant, you're completely dismissing me and making me marginalized within an organization I'm a part of. So, having the right words in there, and he doesn't go into this, but we all know, Apple is great about that, in his whole description of begin with the why, and people buy into what you're about, not what you produce.
Yeah.
You're about innovation and cutting edge technology and just being out there and providing the most support to everybody. Well, that's powerful. People will be drawn to that regardless of how they're going to contribute to it.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, the third thing he says, and this one I find really interesting, service-oriented. Right? So in any relationship, there's a benefactor and a contributor, and in a service-oriented vision, service-oriented mission, service-oriented just cause, the primary benefit goes to somebody other than the contributor. So it's not about the business. We're going to make all, Apple does that, right? We want to provide the best technology and all this cutting edge information for, the customer out there, for, school teachers, for law enforcement, for academics, for politicians, for whoever. And we want to provide the best. So, you're going to make money, you're going to do well, you're going to be, successful, you're going to have influence, but those three things, right? So your just cause has to have the resiliency, it has to have the idea of being inclusive, and of course a service orientation.
Man, that was so good. I'm sitting here
Remember, this is Simon, right? I'd like to take credit, but
exactly.
But it does make you stop and think, and I think that's why it's so powerful to continue to learn. Because I've been around mission statements for years, right? I made them up all the time, and as I think about it, I tried to do these, and then I look at those Plumb ones, and we had some of this was in here, right?
Right.
I thought, okay, well, now, was I thinking about inclusiveness in that? But I don't know we were pulling anybody out, because we were going to go provide these things,
right.
And everybody contributed in their own way. So maybe so, but Simon Sinek. Three things for a just cause.
This is good. So I'm over here taking notes as you're talking. That's why I keep dropping my head down.
So I kept looking down at mine.
Here's the beauty of what I heard, right? So I'm listening, I'm looking at this, and obviously, like you said, you thought back to the plumb lines that we were using back then. And so as I'm listening to this, I know that you wanted to make sure that the plumb lines fit, but in my from my perspective, being, the receiver of said plumb lines, right? It's a perfect fit because it nested directly under the vision of the organization. Therefore, these plumb lines that you created were keeping us in line with what the idea of the company had. What did it have resiliency built in? Absolutely. Because like when I go back and think about what we did or what we were doing, it was all to the idea of making sure that we had flexibility built into the different, built into the different lines of efforts that we supported. Moving forward, you look at tech, cultural, and political resiliency existed in there. Sure, we had tech resiliency. Sure, we had cultural resiliency. Sure, we had political resiliency as well. And so when we look at it, it just kind of made a whole bunch of sense. Was it inclusive? Absolutely. When I go back and I think about these, I think about how we did business, the things that drove business, the onboarding and the continual learning within the organization itself, understanding the needs of the customer and understanding the needs of the organization and how the organization made sure that we put the customer first. That was number one, definitely service oriented. But then by that same token, the organization did not exclude anybody, regardless of where you're from, whatever walk of life you came in. In fact, what I do recall is the flexibility that was built in inclusivity that said, hey, I know we said we're looking for people with this, but you know what? Within that, you can substitute this for that, and then we can bring those people in as well. So yeah, absolutely. As I look at it, just cause, it makes perfect sense because under the idea, we are, when we look at vision itself, we are causative in a justful fashion. So the justice that is created under the activity and the mindset that we've, displayed within the organization, for the organization and around the customer, was after the cause of the cause of the relationship that was created that established the agreement. So I agree 100%. This is amazing when it comes down to vision. So maybe we stop saying vision and say just cause now.